Welcome to the Podkey summary of Iterate Your Spatial Scenes Faster with Reality Composer Pro 3 from WWDC 2026. Apple's pushing Reality Composer Pro in a pretty practical direction. Less waiting, less guesswork, and a lot more seeing your changes immediately. The big theme across these updates is faster iteration. Whether that's previewing straight on Vision Pro, tweaking simulations while they're running, or even generating 3D assets with a built-in assistant. And maybe the most quietly important change of the bunch is that Reality Composer Pro 3 now stands on its own as a macOS app, which makes the whole tool feel a lot easier to just open and use. Reality Composer Pro 3 is now a standalone macOS app you can download from developer.apple.com instead of having to route everything through Xcode. That sounds small until you've ever had a tool hidden behind another tool for no great reason. Launching the editor directly cuts setup friction and lowers the barrier for people building spatial content, especially folks who want to create without feeling like they first need to move into Xcode full-time. One of the most useful additions is Live Preview, which streams the simulation directly to a connected Vision Pro headset. So instead of making a change, rebuilding, deploying, putting the headset on, and hoping it looks right, creators can see updates instantly on the device. That kind of immediate feedback matters a lot in spatial work, because things that seem fine on a monitor can feel very different once they're actually in the headset. Apple says this is coming later this year, and if it works the way it sounds, it should cut iteration time dramatically. That same speed up shows up in the new Simulation tab workflow. If you dock the Simulation tab beside the scene, you can adjust physics, scripts, and animations while the experience is running. The big win is that you don't have to stop, deploy again, and squint at whether the change helped. You just tweak, watch the result, tweak again, and keep moving. For creative tools, that loop is everything. Another update aimed at making advanced work more approachable is Compute Graph. It's a node-based visual system for GPU tasks, so people can build things like particle systems or fluid simulations without writing code. That's a meaningful shift, because GPU programming usually has a pretty steep intimidation factor attached to it. Here the graph runs during the simulation stage, and developers can adjust parameters in real time through the Simulation tab. So it isn't just about making fancy effects possible, it's about making them easier to understand, test, and actually use. Reality Composer Pro is also getting a prototype system with overrides, which should make larger scenes a lot more manageable. You can turn an entity into a reusable prototype asset just by dragging it into the project browser, then instantiate it as many times as you need. Each instance can have its own overrides, and those overrides can either be reset or pushed back into the original prototype. That gives creators a nice safety net. Changes aren't locked in forever unless you want them to be. It's the kind of workflow feature that saves time quietly over and over, especially when you're reusing objects across a project. On the rendering side, Apple is adding light maps for indirect lighting. These pre-bake indirect light, ambient occlusion, and beauty terms into textures, which helps preserve those subtle bounce light details without paying for them at runtime. That's especially useful when you want a scene to feel grounded and nuanced, but you don't want performance taking the hit. There's also a dedicated light map preview tab, so creators can adjust bake quality and inspect the final look before committing to a full bake, which is honestly the polite thing for a baking workflow to do. Apple is also folding in an AI assistant for Reality Composer Pro, built around generative models. It can create 3D objects and materials from simple prompts, which could speed up early concepting or help fill in missing pieces without bouncing to a separate tool. And it isn't limited to asset generation. The assistant can also answer tool-specific questions, which means it doubles as a built-in guide while you're authoring. That combination is interesting because it treats AI less like a flashy side feature and more like workflow support. Make a thing, explain a thing, keep the person moving. Taken together, these changes all point at the same goal: compress the distance between an idea and seeing that idea working. Standalone access gets you into the app faster. Live Preview gets your work onto Vision Pro faster. The Simulation tab and Compute Graph make experimentation faster. Prototypes reduce repetitive setup, and light maps help you lock in visual quality efficiently. Even the Assistant is really about reducing stalls. Those little moments where you stop creating because you're missing an object, missing a material, or missing an answer. None of that is flashy in the abstract, but in practice, it's what makes a creative tool feel either inviting or exhausting. So the headline here isn't one giant feature. It's a whole stack of improvements that make Reality Composer Pro feel more direct, more approachable, and a lot less stop and start. For people building spatial experiences, that probably matters more than any single demo-worthy trick. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm. Podkey.